Is this Amy?
Yes.
Hi, Amy. This is Brooke Miller calling from DC Public Schools. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Brooke. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking. And is now still a good time to speak?
Yeah, this is great.
Wonderful. Well, I've really been looking forward to speaking with you for your interview. I just wanted to give you a little bit of context for the call today. So this conversation will probably take around 20 minutes. I'll try to leave some time at the end for you to ask questions.
Okay.
In terms of what you can expect, I just want to let you know that I'll be taking notes on my end so that I can remember our conversation clearly. So there might be a point where you are done speaking and you haven't heard from me and know that I'm just catching up with you. And there might also be a time or two where I've gotten enough information from you on a particular question and I move us ahead.
Sure.
I just want to let that know. Since we're over the phone, we don't have the benefit of seeing each other those nonverbal cues.
Yes.
So I just wanted to give you a heads up here at the front of the call.
Okay.
All right, great. Well, I'm looking forward to diving in. So let's go ahead and get started.
Great.
So in looking at the essay that you completed prior to this interview, in your lesson script, you chose using a KWL to activate prior knowledge. Can you talk me through a little bit your rationale for using this strategy to meet your objectives?
Yeah. I know that when students are reading ahead of time, it's really important, especially in nonfiction, to show them how they kind of know things about what they're going to read so that when they go in, their brain is ready to make connections between what they already know and then also is ready to absorb that new information that they're going to receive by reading the nonfiction. So I've seen in my classroom that this is a really helpful tool for my students before we kind of dive into heavier nonfiction.
All right, thanks for sharing that. And then thinking about sort of the scope of the lesson, how might you differentiate your lesson for your highest performing students?
Yeah, differentiation is really hard. I think for my more advanced students, I might do something afterward where they have to take what they initially had in their KWL chart and maybe write. We've been working on writing nonfiction papers, so maybe write an essay or a nonfiction piece or a newspaper article or something where they are taking what they're learning and kind of synthesizing it into something better or bigger.
Great. And so on the flip side of that, how might you differentiate the lesson for your lower performing students?
Maybe I might do something have a note taker for them so that they don't have to write as much. Or maybe have them read with a buddy so that they can read, be able to read material.
Great. And so thinking back on that same lesson here, can you just highlight for me what the objective that you set out for your students for the lesson?
The objective was that they would be able to use a KWL chart to read a nonfiction text.
And then how would you know that your students can master that objective?
I think if I saw them maybe doing the KWL chart beforehand, before they started reading, if they were kind of coming up maybe with relevant things they already knew and wanted to know, and then if they were able maybe to pick out important things from the reading.
And so how would you, thinking about the scope of your class, how would you know that your students had been successful, all of them?
I think maybe if they had a 50% accuracy on an exit slip, or sometimes we don't get to that in my class because time runs out, and so maybe if we did it in independent practice, I think that would be good. Half the class were able to get it, and I think I'd be able to kind of know that through just a lot of the checks for understanding that I do, when I just ask the questions while we're kind of going through to the class. I think that would be another way. I would be able to tell, and most of the kids could answer the question for half the kids.
Thank you for letting me touch up with
Yeah,
you
no
on
problem.
that. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and move away from the essays that you did prior to our conversation and talk just a little more broadly about your classroom and your focus on student achievement in your classroom.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to hear about the goals that you've set for your students this academic year. So could you tell me a little bit about what those goals are and how you track progress for your students throughout the year towards those goals?
Yeah, so since I'm in a second grade classroom, I don't have the benefit of having like the state test to help me set my goals. And so what I do is I look at their reading growth, or their reading level when they come in, and their reading level at the end. And so I've set the goal that my students will make 1.5 years of reading growth in the 1 year. And then looking at our math standards, that they will have mastered 85% of their math standards. And I have a conversation with each child before we actually kind of set this goal together, so they feel like they're a part of the process, and they have their own, individualized goal sheet that they look at, where they know their goal. Like if you're coming in on, like a DRA level 2, then you know that your goal is 1.5 years, and you have it at the end of your goal sheet, and you can move your little goal tracker guy across.
That's great.
And they really like that. And then the same thing for math, except in a standard sheet, they use stickers to track. And then we have a class average that we're going for, basically just the average of all of the kids. And then we just have that up on the wall too, so everyone can know when they come in and see it.
So it sounds really transparent in terms of tracking goals and celebrating progress. And so I'm really curious to hear how your students doing so far, since we're about halfway through the school year.
Yeah, so far they're doing, they're definitely, they're kind of on track. I've had to take a step back and look at my, the data so far and kind of reevaluate what I was going to do next, or make some changes to my long-term plan, just to make sure that they are, 100% on track to meet that goal. Because I have some students who are falling behind a little bit. So.
Yeah, and so I know you've been teaching second grade for a couple of years now. How did your students do last year? Did they have the same goals, and then how did they perform at the end of the year?
Yeah, they had the same goals, and I had my students on average made 1.37 years of growth in reading, and they made and they mastered 82% of their math standards. So we fell slightly short.
And so how has that influenced your teaching for this year? What changes have you made?
Yeah, I kind of reorganized when I did things, just because I realized that some of the math standards, they built on other pieces, and so I had to kind of move things around so that they were getting those bigger, heftier standards. At the end, I had them in the beginning of the year, and it was just hard for them to do them. Obviously, then, which led to frustration and just lots of terrible things. And so I was able to move things around. And right now, my students are ahead of where my students were last year. And so obviously, kids are different, so it's hard to compare, from one year to the next. But yeah, but so far, I think that they're going to do better.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that with me. And so, leading off of that question, I know this is going to be a pretty big question to ask you, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on, are you an effective teacher, and how do you know that?
I think that I have a really positive classroom culture with my students, and they feel really invested in their own success, and they are really excited when other people have successes in the classrooms. I've been able to build really positive relationships with my students and their parents, which is something I really wanted to make sure I was able to do this year. I've had some students who are almost meeting their goal at this point of the year, and that's, to me, really amazing. I think, if you came back to me at the end of the year, I would be able to give you a more firm answer of yes or no, because I really would say yes if all of my students meet the goals that I've set out for them and that they're invested in at the end of this year.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to shift gears just a little bit again, and I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about why you're interested in teaching for DC Public Schools. When I think of our district, it's really inspiring the work that we're doing here. No large urban district has ever closed the achievement gap, and we're going to be the first to do it. And so I'm really just curious to hear from you. First, at sort of the high level, why did you become a teacher? And then second level, why are you interested in working for DCPS?
I became a teacher. I first learned about, I guess like I've always kind of knew in the back of my head that there was like unequal education in this country, but I really learned about it taking some policy classes in college. And I really wanted to be a part of closing the achievement gap, and I really believed that like the teacher has such a strong role in that. And no matter what happens, like at a district level or, wherever, that teachers really do matter most. And so I thought to have the most direct impact on this problem, I wanted to become a teacher.
And then what about DCPS specifically makes you interested in working here?
I followed DCPS for years, just kind of 2 years now that I've been teaching, and just seen the really like innovative and cool things that DCPS is doing. I really like the idea of like the impact performance assessment tool, just to know like I'm going to get like really targeted feedback and be able to use that feedback to make things better for my kids, because I'm only been teaching for 2 years. I know I have so much to learn. I think that would be a great way to do it. And then I also really love the idea. I know through like some of the other things that you all have going on there, I could have an instructional coach, like a master educator, and then maybe if I ever became good enough, I could become one of those people also and kind of expand my impact, while still teaching. So those two things really excite me.
Yeah, I definitely think I've worked in several different school systems around the country, and I think what DC is doing to really recognize strong teachers and to allow different pathways for individuals to pursue leadership opportunities has been just really, really exciting to see.
Yeah, I agree. It's really exciting.
And so you talked a little bit about impact, and I'd love to hear your thoughts specifically on our impact evaluation system. So just at a high level, what's your take on this system?
Yeah, I think it's great. I followed the coverage in the news. I love how the system is tied to like my student achievement, especially thinking about I ever wanted to like move grades, realizing that I'm an effective teacher based on what my kids do. Like that's great. And as I'm thinking about like my next move, I'm thinking about really wanting to work for a school district that has like I mentioned those like really clear expectations and like then feedback off of that. And I think like if I'm given like targeted feedback, that will help my students so much more. So it excites me.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. And then I just have one final question for you today. And many of our schools in DCPS have large numbers of students who are growing up in poverty. And these students can face a host of challenges, from stress to hunger, unstable home environments, poor health, lower basic academic skills, and many others. So how would you achieve success with your students despite these challenges?
Yeah, I've only taught in communities like this. My business school is in the same type of community, and I just think like that's exactly where I needed to go. I think when I think about a teacher and a school's role in like a low-income community, I think about the original intent of schools, which was to become like a community center almost, like a one-stop shop for everyone in that community, like nurses and doctors and just like food often at the school. I feel like that's like what I can't do like necessarily on a school level, but like on a teacher level I can, whether it's like having granola bars in my classroom for my kids if they come in hungry, or going to visit their home and seeing like what is their home like. They have so many amazing qualities that they can bring into my classroom, and if I get to know them in their own environment, then I will have a better chance of seeing them. Really getting to know their parents, I just think that like in my community here, I'm always like out and about. Like I know like all of the one of the parents sells like empanadas in front of the school, and I always go and talk to her. And like I just think it's like it's vital that you are like out in the community and known and have like much more of a presence than just like, in the classroom. I think that's like absolutely what is needed. But then at the same time, I also really believe that like my number one job is to make sure that their kids learn. And it's like up to me to be able to figure out like with the parents, with my principal, like whoever, like whatever it's going to take to make sure that like my kids are actually learning in the classroom. And then all the other things I think that's like lead that, like make that easier.
Great. And so thinking about the teacher's role in helping students achieve academically, if you had to think about what percent of the responsibility falls on you as the teacher, what percentage would you allot to your role as a teacher in terms of leading students to success academically?
I mean, I think that, like, you are the number one person responsible. I think that, like, you can do other things to make that job easier for you. And, like, you know, like, if I'm struggling with something, it's, like, my responsibility to, like, find someone to help me with that. Whether it's, like, their mom or my principal or, like, maybe if I'm in D.C., like, my master educator or, you know, whoever it is. I feel like you can never, like, make excuses for, like, why someone is not learning in your classroom.
Thank you for sharing that with me
Yeah.
as well. So looking at the time, I have just time for one more question, and then obviously you have our contact information.
Yes.
You can contact us at any time with other questions. But are there any just immediate questions that I can answer for you?
I don't have any immediate questions. I'm more wondering just, like, what the next step is.
Great. So you will hear from us
Okay.
within 2 weeks about the status of your application and whether or not you're moving forward.
Okay.
And so again, just thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and I wish you a lot of luck with your students this year.
Thank you.
I'm definitely rooting for you all.
Thank you. Bye, Brooke.
All right. Goodbye.